What is true love? Dedication, lust, commitment? We think love is far more nuanced than simple words can explain, and Eric knew that better than most. He spent nearly half a decade hoping to see the women he loved, Mandy, wake up from a coma. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Dailydose, like and share this video with your friends. Every day he stood by her bedside praying for a miracle, and finally, that day came, but rather than be a day full of joy, it was one full of tears and anger. Eric and Mandy had known each other since they were kids. Both of them shared a lot of hobbies and had the same joy for life. Mandy actually helped the shy Eric come out of his shell, and when Eric asked her to marry her at a young age, no one was surprised. The couple quickly got married and were excited to start a life together. But before they could even think about the next chapter of their lives, a tragedy happened. Mandy had an accident and fell into a coma. Mandy was the light of Eric's life, and seeing her in this situation was devastating. The doctors had no idea when Mandy was going to wake up and asked Eric to prepare himself for the worst. But the doting husband wasn't willing to give up on his wife that easily. He knew that Mandy was going to get through this. She was a fighter, and much like so many other hurdles in her life, she was going to overcome this one as well. Eric wasn't alone in his belief of Mandy making a full recovery. Despite all the medical professionals giving ominous warnings, he and Mandy's parents knew that all was going to turn out well. The three of them came up with a game plan to always be by Mandy's bedside and talk to her as if she was awake and responsive. They gave her encouragement to heal her body and hoped that their positivity would help her recover. The doctors had no idea when Mandy was going to wake up. It could happen in a matter of days or could go on forever. Right now, the young woman was in stable condition. She was neither getting worse nor better. Family and friends came by and visited Mandy, gave Eric their condolences, but to him this was all just temporary. His wife was going to get back to normal in no time. But before he knew it, the days turned into weeks, and now 6 months had gone by. Eric had not imagined that Mandy was going to be in a coma for this long. He sat with her day and night, switching his work schedule around, and even started working from home so he could spend more time with his sick wife. He had a new routine. Eric would wake up, pack a bag for the day and his laptop, and spend the whole day sitting on a chair next to his wife's side. He watched and helped as nurses came and took care of Mandy, always hopeful. But of course, even his optimism had a limit. Mandy's parents could not stay any longer at the hospital and had to go back home for work. Now Eric was left alone and without his own support system to fall back on. He felt completely isolated and worried if he had made the right decision keeping Mandy on life support. He again asked the doctors about his wife's chances and was met with a blank wall of no hope and despair. Mandy's illness was consuming Eric. He stopped going out with his friends. He didn't even bother talking to his own parents. All he did was sit by his wife's bedside. Eric was a broken man, and he felt that only Mandy waking up could heal him. Mandy's parents were touched by Eric's devotion, but they could clearly see that the young man was miserable, and sitting by Mandy's bed wasn't going to make her heal quicker. So they decided to come to visit Eric to push him in a new direction. They had been close to the couple and knew how much the two of them loved being active together, going on walks or to the gym. Now, with Mandy in the hospital, Eric had left all these hobbies behind and had become a shell of his old self. But Mandy's parents couldn't see Eric suffer like this. They already saw Mandy wither away in front of their eyes, and seeing their son-in-law intentionally wasting his life was too much. So, they encouraged Eric to go back to his old life. They wanted Eric to not spend his days sitting by Mandy's bedside, and comforted Eric that he had done enough and could do no more to help his ailing wife. It was time for him to resume his old life, or at least find a new normal. Eric and Mandy used to go on runs in the city together, and with his wife's parents' blessing, the young man started jogging alone. This is when he met his new friend. The young lady was full of life and a breath of fresh air for Eric, and he was also enamored by her. She brought a sense of joy back into his life, a feeling that Eric didn't think he was capable of experiencing again. But with the emotion came a strong sense of guilt. Should he be enjoying his life with this beautiful new woman while his wife was fighting for her life? He didn't think so. And while his new jogging buddy was ready to take their relationship to the next level, Eric was very reluctant. The young man had always been close to Mandy's parents, but during her time at the hospital, he had developed an unbreakable bond with them. And as soon as he started having feelings for his new friends, He told them everything. He felt guilt and torn and lovely. Nearly 2 years had gone by, and Mandy had not improved, and Eric felt helpless. And to his surprise, Mandy's parents were very supportive and understood where he was coming from. They guided Eric into understanding his emotions better and told him that it was okay if he was happy with this other woman. He was, in fact, a normal, adult man who had a range of emotions that he couldn't stop or control. Mandy's parents even told Eric that if he got into a relationship with this woman, Mandy would have understood. He had their blessing to continue forward and live his life as he pleased. While most people would have been ecstatic hearing these words, Eric felt even more torn. Spending time with this other woman did feel like cheating to him, and Eric had to put a full stop to it. He explained to the woman how they could never be anything more than friends, as he was devoted to his wife, who was currently in the hospital. Eric also changed his running times and decided to focus all his energy on his wife yet again. Just like that, 5 years went by, and Eric went back to spending every single day with Mandy. The doctors had all but lost hope, but during a routine checkup, the unthinkable happened. Eric's wife, who had not shown a single responsive sign since she had gone into a coma nearly 5 years old, twitched her fingers. Eric wasn't present at the time of the checkup, but was immediately called to the hospital. It was late at night, but Eric left everything and rushed to Mandy. Could this really be happening? Was Mandy finally getting better? The doctors thought so. They asked Eric to sign some paperwork so they could perform more tests, and with each test, the results were looking hopeful. It looked like the impossible was happening. Mandy's body was finally healing itself, and nobody could believe it, least of all her family. Slowly, with each passing week, Mandy started moving more and more of her body. Her toes started wiggling, her eyebrows moved, and she even raised her hands. And of course, the doctors and Eric watched her like a hawk. This was a very delicate time in Mandy's life, and one wrong move could ruin all the progress she had made. And Eric was with her every step of the way. He watched and helped Mandy as much as he could, and the moment Eric had been waiting for 5 years finally came. Mandy opened her eyes and woke up finally. She was completely conscious, and Eric broke down crying. Was this really happening? Mandy looked weak but like herself, and while Eric stood crying, blubbering how much he missed his wife and how happy he was to see her, Mandy's response was one no one was expecting. She was furious and fuming. Everyone in the room was confused. The doctors had prepared Eric to expect the unexpected from Mandy, but he had no idea why his wife was so angry. He had spent years devoted to her, even when it felt impossible, and to have her response to him be one full of anger was a huge blow to Eric. And after hearing his wife scream at him for a few minutes, he finally realized why she was angry. When Mandy had been told that she had been in a coma for 5 years, she immediately assumed the worst from her husband and was upset at him, as she had thought he had moved on and forgotten her. But all Eric could do was laugh at her and kissed her to calm her down. He explained how miserable he had been and how he couldn't have been happier to finally have his life be complete now that Mandy was awake again.